Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey, and today we will be completing the buzzwordathon. If you don't know, the buzzwordathon is a readathon created by Books and Lala that she does, I think it's a couple of years now in a row. And come December every year, I am always missing a couple of months. This year, there's two aspects to the readathon. There's the buzzword reading challenge, which is there has to be some sort of like word or a theme of words in the title of the book. And then there's also the buzzword cover challenge, which is that the cover has to embody some sort of theme or word. So this year, I actually did pretty well, and I was pretty please ignore my son in the background. But I was pretty consistent with completing them within the month that I had to complete them. Come the end of the year, come planning my son's birthday and Christmas time, November and December fell behind. So this is what this vlog is for. We're going to be completing them. What we were missing from the cover challenge is November's challenge of cover featuring food and or drink on the cover, and December's challenge of cover featuring a monochromatic color scheme. And then for the reading challenge, the word for November was never, and the word theme for December was titles featuring alliteration. So I'll take you back to Kelsey 1 week ago when I started this challenge, and we'll come back at the end. Hello, so I was in the process of editing this video, so not to come in with editing me again. This video, 2 clips in a row, I already have editing problems. Fantastic, love that. But I lost the clip where I spoke about Neverworld Wake, my initial thoughts on it, and when I read it. So I actually picked up Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl a couple of months ago for my Read It or Unhaul It series with my YA books, and I had got 100 pages into it. I gave it a solid start, but I ended up DNFing it for that video. I just don't care. I listen. I know that I will likely like this, but right now I ran out of time this weekend to read what I needed to read in order to post this vlog on time. And I can't bring myself to rush through this book because I feel like I'm not going to enjoy it. I think the purpose of it is, or at least the purpose of Marisha Pestl's writing is to enjoy things slowly. It's the first 100 pages have been extremely predictable to me, and I'm worried that by rushing through it I'm just not going to enjoy it and I'm going to unhaul a book. And if you know anything about me, I am like a collector and I like to keep every edition of authors that I enjoy, and I don't know if I'm ready to accept that maybe Night Film from Marisha Pessl was just a one-off and I just liked it because of the book and not necessarily the author, which is like unheard of for my little brain up here. I'm going to put this off. I'm going to read it likely, I'll be honest with you, in another dwindle down my YA TBR, but maybe I will be in like a better place to consume it. That's what I'm hoping. At least right now, I just don't want to rush through it. I don't feel like I was enjoying my reading experience last night when I was reading it. So I'm just going to call it here. It's not an unhaul. It's not a DNF, but it's like a pausing for now. So Neverworld Wake takes place in our normal America when a group of friends narrowly avoids this collision with an oncoming drunk driver. Later that night, they get a mysterious knock at the door from this old man who tells them that actually they didn't avoid this car crash and they are currently in this limbo type of world called the Neverworld Wake. In this wake, they have to make a choice where one of them lives and the rest of them will die, and they have to vote on it. So as time bends, as they repeat the same day over and over again, they slowly come to a realization with each other and in turn make their final decision as to who will live. So the first 100 pages, we're really setting up this plot. We're really trying to understand the wake and how time works in this wake. The characters are all very much in denial about what is happening to them, what is occurring. They are refusing to partake in this game with this man, and so they're really just reliving the day over and over and over again, very much like a Groundhog Day situation without anything really changing because they're not doing anything to actively make themselves better or try to solve the reason why they have ended up in this limbo. So when we get to the end of the first third, B, who is our, I would say main character, comes to the realization that they have to discover why they are there in order to be able to solve the Neverworld Wake. And as I mentioned, when I got to the end of that first third a couple of months ago, I was just not in the mood for this type of story. I don't think Groundhog Day stories are for me. I find them to be extremely repetitive, obviously as it is in their nature, but to me, I just find Groundhog Day scenarios to be really, really annoying. And I think it's especially apparent how annoying it is in the beginning when the characters are so resistant to this occurrence in their life. And that's exactly how I felt with this first third. But given that for the month of November, the reading challenge is to have a book with the word never in the title, and this is the only book I have with never in the title, that's the reason why I decided to go with this, finish it. It is relatively short. It is a YA novel, so I was able to finish this fairly quickly, which is why I decided to choose it. So I will now take you into the next clip where I talk about the second third of the novel. Hello, it's time for the next update of Neverworld Wake. I don't even remember the last time I updated you because I did have to put a pause on reading this book. I was violently ill for several days. I don't know if it was some sort of gastro that my baby brought home. Nobody else was sick, just me, so that was great. But I was so sick. I couldn't even edit the last vlog, which I am posting today just because like I feel bad that I didn't post it last Thursday. So I'm hoping like a couple of days later is okay, but obviously like this vlog coming out, so it's just going to work as like an in-between week, and that's it. Today I just have like a couple of like cleaning tasks to do in the home, so it's the perfect time to finish this book. I have about 100 pages left. The second third of the book I finished last night. I don't know exactly if my feelings would have changed if I would have just DNF'd this book. I don't know if I care about the characters. I don't know if I care about the plot. I am just listening to it. It's a thing that I'm listening to. The second third of the novel, they're really talking about the death of one of their friends and how it could possibly link to why they are in the Neverworld Wake. And one of the characters, Martha, is figuring out that the wake they thought was like a repeating day is actually a area of time that they have created in their mind, or like parts of their mind have made this limbo in a sense that they are staying in. And so they have to sort of solve that in order to solve the death of their friend, in order to then escape the wake or figure out how to escape the wake. I think where this plot is going is that they each have a hand in the death of their friend, and they are sort of being like karmically punished for that. That sounds interesting. And I think if Marisha Pessel wrote this as an adult book with a lot more pages to work with, a lot more emphasis on like different philosophical ideas or like a made up science that she's somehow created in this book, I think it could have really worked, and I think it could have been really interesting. I think due to the fact that it is YA, we're working with less pages, and not that young kids can't understand these more complex problems, but I think publishers don't expect these complex problems in a more like YA book. So what we're sort of missing here is this like confusing area that's working as this confusing thing, but the characters are not engaging enough to keep me interested in them solving this like mystical or weird world that they've placed themselves in. I also hate the narrator. I don't think that's affecting like my overall actual appreciation of the book, but I find the narrator for certain characters gives them this weird accent for no reason. And particularly it's this character that's from the South. He's given a very like almost like Southern Scarlett O'Hare accent. It's just not working because none of the other characters have this accent, and I just think the character would have just worked as like, yes, I came from the South, and like that's it. Like the narrator doesn't have to do this like weird accent that feels so off-putting because they're obviously trying to make him sound like this like, oh darling, like it's so weird, and I don't understand why this is happening, and it throws me off every time he speaks. Again, I think that's a separate issue. Like I don't like the narration style, but I also don't think this book is engaging enough for me. So I'm going to finish this for sure right now while I do other tasks. I definitely plan on making a lunch and going to the gym, hopefully before I have to pick up my son. So my son did have a fever 2 days ago. It was a mild fever. Like I gave him some Tylenol and he was pretty much healed. I kept him home yesterday just to observe, just to make sure he was doing okay, and I sent him to daycare today. So we're going to see how he does, because obviously like when he's feeling sick, he just wants to be home with me, and like nap time proves to be very difficult for him. I'm going to still go to the gym and hopefully he's good until 3 p.m. If I'm at the gym and I don't really get a text until like 1:40, 2 o'clock, usually that means they're going to keep him another hour and a half. So I think I should be good, but everything's up in the air until then. So I'm going to continue listening to this, make my lunch, and we'll see where the day takes us. Hello. So I come to you having finished Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessel. And I don't think I'm as enamored with this one as a lot of my peers are. And I think that really dampened my experience because I was really expecting to love this one. Night Film by Marisha Pessl, her first book, is one of my favorite books of all time. So you can say that I was eagerly anticipating every single published book from her. And so far, they have just not reached the potential of Night Film. Now, is that my fault? Is that the book's fault? Listen, we're not here to name names, okay? I'm just telling you what's going on. And what's going on is that this did not satisfy me. The premise was really, really cool. I liked this idea that kids are trapped in this Neverworld wake and they have to vote as to who will survive. It's giving Saw vibes, but I don't think the execution of the book was as strong as its premise. I did not care for this novel's overall mystery because I didn't understand how it related. And then when it started to click, I just didn't care. And I didn't really care about the characters overall, let alone the person who died, the mystery that we're solving. Aside from our main characters of Bee, Jim, and like, let's say Martha, none of the side characters felt really distinct. And I was constantly mixing them up. So I think we could have benefited, or the novel could have benefited from a much smaller friend group. And I think the result of the book would have ultimately been the same. And by the time we got to the twist of the mystery, I just didn't care anymore because I wanted the novel to end. Again, I really liked that it felt like a Saw movie, and that the ultimate reveal of the novel, without really giving into spoilers, is that they're all assholes. And that very much felt like Saw to me. So I liked that, but I think I was expecting just too much from Pessl, that nothing would have really satisfied me. So I gave it a 3 stars, and I will be unhauling this. It is a YA novel, and I'm trying to only keep the YA novels that I absolutely adore on my shelves. So hopefully this will go out into the universe, into my community, and someone will like it a lot more. But this does complete the buzzword reading challenge for the word never for November. So we can happily check that off the list and move into our next challenge, which is the buzzword cover challenge for the month of November. And the challenge is to find a cover featuring food and or drink. And so for that, I have an aardvark release that I got this year called What Hunger by Catherine Dang. And as you can see, the cover has a very, very large raspberry. I am incredibly excited for this book because I think it involves one of my favorite like horror tropes, which is an unhinged female character. So it's the summer before high school and Ronnie Nguyen finds herself too young for work and too old for cartoons. Her days are spent in a small backyard dozing off to trashy magazines on a plastic lawn chair. In stark contrast stands her brother, Tommy, the pride and joy of their immigrant parents. The thought of Tommy leaving for school fills Ronnie with dread as she contemplates the quiet house she will be left alone in with her parents. Her parents rarely speak of their past in Vietnam except through the lens of food. They taught Ronnie and Tommy that meat was a dangerous luxury, a symbol of survival that should never be taken for granted. But when tragedy strikes, Ronnie's world is upended and her sense of self and her understanding of her family are shattered. A few nights later, at Ronnie's first high school party, a boy crosses the line and she is overtaken by a force larger than herself. So that's all I'm going to read from the synopsis. It's giving unhinged girl, it's giving cannibal, and weirdly, I love that in books. So I'm definitely going to be starting this right now while unfortunately I have to cook food, but I'm really, really, really hoping I like it. I've heard good things, so hoping this is a success.
Hello, so let's get into our first update for What Hunger by Catherine Dang. I am really, really enjoying this. I'm about 94 pages in, so about 1/3 of the way through the novel. I think these first few chapters set the scene for what's to come, and we're really strong in presenting the relationships between our characters. So to avoid spoilers, because something happens within the first third that is not, I mean, you know what? Let me check because I haven't fully read the synopsis. Okay, yeah, so it's not really mentioned this like pivotal moment in the first third that really changes the relationships between Ronnie and her parents. So I don't want to dive too much into that, but just know that it is a tragedy that strikes their family and they are all struggling to really adapt to this while also trying to present themselves as a strong family. Now, I'm gonna put this book down. I myself am not Vietnamese American, I'm Vietnamese Canadian, but I do come from a immigrant family, and especially and specifically a family that comes from surviving a war, living a life under a fascist dictator. A lot of my growing up and a lot of the generational trauma that comes from that and coming from being very, very, very poor in another country, looking for survival in what seems like a safe haven of Canada, that is all like heavily ingrained in the generational trauma that obviously I still feel it's not directly my parents, but it is my grandparents, and still feel to this day this idea that we don't understand our culture, but we're expected to understand our culture. This idea of presenting ourselves out in society to other members of our community, and how we reflect our parents and our grandparents, and how members of our own community, members of our own family compare the children to one another, how successful we are, yada yada yada. And I think that is a very crucial and common experience for children and descendants of immigrants from World War II and on. So specifically in this book, they're talking a lot about being in Vietnam after communism, after the Vietnamese War, and then how this trauma is then reflected into Tommy and Ronnie, and how they essentially reflect their parents, but they are too American, but they are also Vietnamese. And that aspect of having to present yourself a specific way and to be perfect and this and that is heavily explained within the first third of the novel. And this trauma is hinted at as they are navigating this tragedy, and the way that Ronnie, her mom, and her dad have to present themselves despite experiencing this tragedy, I think has been really interesting. And I think what we're going to see is how the stress of this tragedy turns into cannibalism. Something happens to Ronnie at a house party. She goes to her first house party in high school. I think, we can all get the gist of what it was. And in order to protect herself, Ronnie bites the boy's ear. So that's all I'll say from here on out in terms of like spoilery stuff. That is our first instance as to something being wrong with Ronnie. And it is on her mind when she's in this like heavily drunk and drugged state, because her family was speaking on survivors and resorting to unspeakable means to survive. So that was in her mind while she was in this like drugged and drunk state. As for Catherine Dang's writing, I'm really enjoying it. I think it is fairly simple, but I don't think that is detracting in any way from my overall enjoyment of the book. If anything, I think it's further like emphasizing specific dynamics between characters and emphasizing our main character Ronnie and her position in society as this like freshman high schooler, naive but at the same time not, experiencing generational trauma and understanding that she's different from her parents but different from her society around her. So I'm really loving it. I'm going to continue listening to it while I wash some dishes, while I make my lunch. I'm probably going to go to the gym later, but usually at the gym I listen to like YouTube videos or music. I'm hoping I can finish this today because it is short, and I'm hoping that it won't take me long to finish the second third so I can come back to you and give you an update before my son gets home.
Hello, so I'm trying something out with this microphone. Hopefully it was a charging issue, and now that it's fully charged, or hopefully fully charged, it's working. I've been having issues with, I'm sure you've noticed in this vlog specifically, this microphone disconnecting and shutting off, and it's really disappointing to me because I actually love this microphone so much. But anyways, I did get the next third of What Hunger Done. In this third, we really see Ronnie succumbing to her want for raw meat, going to butcher shops, requesting for more raw meat when at restaurants. The hunger is like insatiable. And I'm understanding that this is potentially a trauma response, right? So what we're seeing is an idea of cannibalism responding to an act of survival. So the story that was told to Ronnie in the first third was that when abandoned on an island, a survivor resorted to cannibalism in order to survive, the cannibalism of the people around him. And then Ronnie, after being assaulted at a house party, is resulting to cannibalism in order to have self-defense, probably understand what happened to her. And I'm finding it to be really interesting. And obviously this is being put in conversation with being the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants, the amount of pressure that is being placed on Vietnamese children when they come to America, this idea of making it within America, that kind of thing, and how a lot of it lies on the shoulders of your children in order to represent you as generations move forward. There's also obvious discussions about the roles in which women have in regards to the men in their household and how these women are handling it. Obviously, we have Ronnie, who is the only daughter of Vietnamese immigrants. There is an amount of pressure on her to behave, to listen, especially after the events that occurred in the first third. We have Ronnie's mother, who is not dealing well with the events that occurred in the first third, but putting on this persona so that other people think that she is handling it well. And then we also have Ronnie's aunt, who is a really interesting character. She's her father's sister, and she's much more brash than Ronnie's mom, right? But she is from the dad's side, so she's not really there to impress Ronnie's mother. Ronnie's mother is more there as the husband's wife, there to make sure that the husband's family is doing okay, and that's why the aunt is the way that she is. What we're seeing is this interesting relationship occur between Ronnie and her aunt, because her aunt is much more
assertive and brash in communicating with Ronnie and asking Ronnie what's going on, what are you doing, and blah blah blah. So I'm definitely going to finish this, I think, tonight. I'm going to continue listening to this while I start cooking supper. It's about the time that I'll start, especially because someone seems to be a hungry little boy. So we're going to make tomato soup and grilled cheese. I just had a literally insane craving for it today. The microphone seems to be working okay, so I'm really happy about that. It seems to be just a charging issue, and we'll see where we go from here.
Hello. Yesterday, I did finish What Hunger by Catherine Dang at night, which means that the prompt for the buzzwordathon to read a book with food on the cover is complete and with such an amazing read. I'm so happy, side note, that I opted to pay for the Aardvark book box this year because I feel like the majority of the books I've read so far I've enjoyed, and every single month I'm at least interested in one book. So I'm really, really liking the picks that they've been choosing, and What Hunger is definitely one of them because I gave it 4 stars. If you've been keeping up with any of my videos this year, you might be thinking to yourself, that's another book with cannibalism that you've enjoyed. And you know what? You would be right. But I don't know what to say. I love them. But there's so much that this book has to offer aside from, like, just some casual cannibalism. It's also a book about one's community and family and how we can love one another despite our differences. It's about the love between siblings and how it feels to lose one another. It's about generational trauma and how unfair it is to carry it around and carry it onward, what we do to break the cycle. And it's also about female rage, assault, and reclaiming oneself after said event. And yes, mayhaps there is some chewing on some flesh, okay, whatever. Some of the writing, I think I mentioned throughout the clips of reading this book that the writing was a tad simplistic. It was a lot more telling rather than showing, it felt like. So that's the only reason why I didn't feel like I could give this book a full 5 stars, because usually 5-star books, I love everything about it, including the prose. But the twists presented in the last third of this novel had me very, very, very interested to see what Catherine Dang publishes next. I know that she has another book published before this one, and I might pick it up because I really, really like this. So now that the 2 November Buzzwordathon prompts have been completed, we can move into the December ones. The December theme for the words is alliteration, so I decided to go with Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. I read Our Wives Under the Sea this year by Julia Armfield. Actually, I don't know if it was for the Buzzwordathon or if I don't think so. I think it was actually for the r/fantasy bingo. Nonetheless, I read it for a challenge this year, which is just interesting, I guess, that both of her books that I had on my TBR are for challenges. This is her first published work, so before Our Wives Under the Sea, and I believe that it is a bunch of short stories. So it's blending elements of horror, science fiction, mythology, and feminism. Salt Slow is an utterly original collection of short stories that is sure to dazzle and shock, heralding the arrival of a daring new voice. So these all sound like really fun short stories, so I'm very interested to start this. I do believe I could possibly finish it in one day. I know that's talking a lot of game, but if you saw the last book that I have chosen for this vlog, you'll understand why I'm a little bit pressed to be finishing these books on time, because I want to have as much time as possible with the last book. Let's get cracking into this. Right now, everyone in my house is sick, so it's really up in the air as to what we've been doing. What B-roll is going to be filmed, probably nothing, but I'll see you later. Hello. So I have gotten about halfway through Salt So, and I decided that this is a good spot to update you. I just going to say that I'm absolutely loving this. I think the writing in this is so incredibly beautiful, and that was one of the things that I said about Our Wives Under the Sea as well. I think Julia Armfield's writing style is absolutely like phenomenal, beautiful, whatever. The stories in here, I'm also surprised to say I've been really, really enjoying. It's not often that I read a short story collection and I'm enjoying every single story. So far we've read about, let's see, we've read about 5 stories, and I think there's 10 in total in here. So I read Mantis, which is about like a girl going through a puberty transformation. 5 stars, loved it. There's The Great Awake, which is about like how people started staying up because their sleeps leave their brain. 4 stars. I thought that was really interesting. The Collectibles, also 4 stars. It's about a group of women who, in order to distract themselves from like their PhD, are like collecting the body parts of people to create the most ideal boyfriend. Very a la bunny. I liked that. Formerly Feral is about a girl and her wolf who is a stepsister. Also enjoy that. Stop Your Women's Ears with Wax, I think, is this collection's like most popular story, which I actually did not enjoy that much. And I think it's because it was the longest short story in the collection. And I still enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it was more of like a 3.5. Like there were definitely some parts of the story that like
I didn't care about, but it was about a female band that has like a hold on teenage women and women in general. And I thought that that was really interesting commentary on like obsession of bands and like musical artists and the toll and hold that they have on people. So far, I have been really, really enjoying this short story collection. I don't have that much to say because obviously, like, there's no continuous plot and there's no like way to talk about these stories without getting into spoilers because they're so short. All I'll say is that I'm really, really enjoying it and I do expect to finish it tonight. My son is still a little bit sick. It is flu season at the daycare, so obviously he's going to get more sick than normal, and but as you can hear, he's very, very chatty today. So I think he's probably feeling better in general, which makes me really happy. So I'm going to continue listening to this. It's a bit early to start supper, but I might give my son like a little bit of a snack and we'll see where the day takes us. The whole time I was talking to the camera, I thought I was recording. I was like well into my review and I realized that I didn't press record. So, hello, welcome back. Today I finished Salt Slow by Julia Armfield after my spin class this morning, which was Justin Bieber versus Justin Timberlake. It was so fun. The music was wonderful, of course, obviously. And then I came home, we just lounged around. We really did nothing. So, all I did was finish the last few pages of Salt Slow. And I'm going to end up giving this 4 stars because I really, really enjoyed all of the stories in here. There wasn't really a story that I didn't like over the others. So, we started the second half with a story called Granite, which was really, I think personally, an allegory for like forced heteronormativity on women. And it's about a girl who's trying to convince herself that she loves this man, that the life she's building with this man is good enough. So that was a really interesting story. Then we had Smack, which was a story about a woman who finds herself in a like sort of toxic-y relationship with a man, barricades herself in their home on the beach in order to like sort of punish the man. Then we had Cassandra, which was an interesting ghost story about a woman who loses her wife. Her wife comes back from the dead and how she sort of handles this after trying to understand like a Catholic death. That one was really, really interesting. The last story was Salt Slow. That is the title story, and it was about a woman who has to give birth on a raft at the end of the world. So the reason that this was really surprising to me is because usually I don't find a collection of stories to be as consistently good after another as this one. I found every story to, of course, be beautifully written. We saw this at the beginning of the year with Our Wives Under the Sea. So I knew Julia Armfield's writing was going to be beautiful. Her prose was going to be good. But also I really appreciated that each individual story had its own themes, and most of the stories touched on like growth, relationships, and a sprinkle of the surreal, which I found to like truly round the collection and like really unify them in a gratifying way. I think my favorites in the collection were Mantis and Granite, but honestly, truly, like all of them were really, really great. And I've never said this before, but I highly recommend this collection. I can't believe it. I really loved it. So now we've checked off the alliteration prompt for December for the BuzzRead Reading Challenge. And now we're going to tackle our last book for this vlog and our last prompt for Books and Lala's Buzzword Challenge. And this is for the cover challenge. So it's for monochromatic, so like one color or a unifying group of colors. And for that, I'm finally going to do it in the month of December, read one of my most anticipated books for the year, which was Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I still haven't picked this one up. I've truly been very nervous because I do think that this could potentially be one of my favorite books from R.F. Kuang. And this is about two rival students who need to follow their graduate teacher into hell because he needs to write them recommendations. So it sounds so fun. I've seen a lot of discourse online that this book is really complicated, that you need to understand so many references to really get the book, that you need to have an English literature degree to understand. Well, guess what, bitch? I have one. So I will be able to tell you if you really need one or if, you know, it's just an osmosis of culture for you to understand. I'm really, really excited. I might start reading it tonight just because like we're just chilling watching the Habs. So that could be potentially what I do. I will let you know when I get about like 100 pages or so, or like 1/3 of the way through. Hello. So this is the first update for Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I am, of course, loving it. But first, before we talk about this, first things first, I'm definitely in a rush. I have 15 minutes before I need to leave so I can go pick up my son from daycare. But we did get our December Aardvark book box. And I just want to open it with you guys. It came like a little, hold on, let me see if it came like broken from the mail. I want to make sure that it's okay, and I've been dying to open it. So let's do this. I'm very excited because the cover for this book looked really, really, really interesting. And I think it involves like insects of a sort. And I really like, turns out, insects in books. I learned, especially like aardvark choices. Okay, the book does not seem damaged, which makes me really happy. Let's get rid of the box. We have the Ultimate Aardvark Trivia Challenge. How well do you know us? You can get a free credit. I don't think I know them very well. I just started this year, and I thought that they started this year, and it turns out they didn't. Here is the bookmark of the month. I love their cute little bookmarks. It always brings me joy. And then the book I chose this month was Itch by Gemma Amor. Something moves on the forest floor. Josie is at rock bottom, living a haunted existence after returning to her isolated hometown on the edge of the Forest of Dean. When she stumbles across a decaying, ant-infested body in the woods, Josie plummets into a downward spiral, facing uncomfortable truths about the victim and her own past, all whilst battling an infestation that seems to have burrowed into her mind and into her flesh. That sounds amazing. Ooh. Hello? Love that. Hopefully we'll get to that soon, but let's talk Catabasis. So I'm not exactly 1/3 of the way in, but I really, really wanted to open the Aardvark book box, so here we are. That being said, though, I am pretty much there. I'm on page 150. And I'm really, really, really enjoying this. I don't think I can ever read from R.F. Kuang and like not like her books. There is just something about R.F. Kuang's writing that is captivating to me, that pulls me in, that always makes me want to continue reading. That is not changed for Catabasis. On top of that, I'm also really, really interested in what this book is about. So it's hitting some pinpoints that I really enjoy. I always enjoy a dark academia setting. I like dark academia. I have multiple degrees, so I've spent my time in academia. The fantasy aspect of this is that they are magicians. They're studying to be magicians, but it's leaning towards things of study that like I have done. So a lot of philosophy, a lot of social liberal art adjacent type of feelings towards magic, and this like detest of mathematics, which I also had in my liberal arts degrees. They're graduate students. They are hunting down their professor in order to get a recommendation, which I find to be a very, very funny premise in and of itself, because if you have searched for professors, they're almost impossible to find all the time. So I think the idea behind this premise is also really funny. And then, of course, we have something that I always, always, always love is a romance between two academic, leaning, intelligent, smart people who find pleasure in arguing with one another at an intellectual or academic level. I think that that is true romance. So it is something that I always appreciate in books. And I think I've seen it with Olivia Blake. I've seen it with R.F. Kuang. This is a trope that I really enjoy in between two characters. The setting of hell is also very evocative to me because I grew up Roman Catholic. I find religion in the subtext of like classic literature to be really, really interesting. And obviously we are getting this as a like modern day sort of Dante's Inferno. And Dante's Inferno is brought up in here quite a bit, but also other scholars and their ideas of the levels of hell. And so all of this is truly, truly interesting to me at a like just my little brain, this is really interesting, you know? Do I think you need to know Dante's Inferno? Do I think you need to have an English literature degree, liberal arts degree in order to appreciate this book? No. I think what you need to know is inferred in the text. If anything, R.F. Kuang explains it and explains what you need to know about what they're talking about. So it's like you can't like it's there, it's in the text. You don't need to have this like underlying knowledge of Dante's Inferno. I think you're fine. Am I enjoying it a bit more because I have this love for Academia Dante's Inferno? Yes, but like I don't think you need to read it in order to love it, if you get what I'm saying. So right now where we are in the book, they're in the second level of hell, which is desire, and we see them really grappling with viewing these sins at the forefront of their mind. They're like, what the hell is this? What are we witnessing? This is truly a sad existence, which I think is really, really fascinating. And also that this hell that they've entered is reflective of like what would be their personal hell, which is like a reflection of a university, which I think is really funny as well. I can see it being a 5 stars. Honestly, I don't have any complaints right now. I'm going to go pick up my son. I have a parent teacher meeting, which I'm very nervous about for some reason. I don't know, because parent teacher nights made me nervous anyways.
when I was like a kid, and now I'm like, oh, I'm my mom. This is gonna be so wonderful. And like obviously my son's a baby, so it's like he's not, he didn't do anything bad. I'm just like, oh, like what could they possibly be telling me? Like, did I do something wrong? I'm really nervous. Becoming a mom. So I'm gonna go do that, and then I'm gonna go to my mom's house. Speaking of motherhood, I'm going to my mom's house, and we're probably going to eat supper there. And it's my baby's birthday this week, so it has been very difficult for me these past few weeks to deal with the fact that he's turning one. So to make it more fun for me, I think will be helpful in like succumbing to the realization that I'm old. Okay, bye.
Nobody else, so we can be free. All the things she said, running through my head.
I'm going to try to do this update really quickly and really quietly. So if you hear the television, I'm so sorry. I really hope I can salvage this. My son is having a lot of trouble sleeping tonight. I don't know if he developed my gene of not being able to sleep before a really exciting day. Tomorrow is his 1 year birthday. I don't know if you could tell by my under eyes, but I definitely cried a lot today. I can't believe he's this old. I can't believe I had a son. I can't believe I gave birth a year ago. Wild. To keep my feelings at bay today while I was buying some stuff for his birthday and yada yada yada, I did get 2/3 of the way through Catabasis, and I have to say that I'm really enjoying this. I really like the plot. I like how Peter and Alice are discovering the different levels of hell, like I mentioned in this vlog, but many vlogs before. I really like religious connotations, religious discussions, and going through these levels of hell has been really fun for me. What I really enjoyed in this last third is that we were really looking at Alice and Peter as individual people, but also their relationship as friends, and maybe a little bit more is suggested. We can clearly tell that they both like each other's presence, that they like each other, but they've had moments in their relationship where there's a lot of misunderstandings that make sense. Alice experienced, there's a lot of the trigger warning for sexual assault, but Alice experienced something with her advisor that made her isolate herself, did not want to talk to people, did not want to engage with others, felt like everyone was judging her. And Peter also deals with Crohn's disease and has kept that a secret, and that explains like why he's so aloof sometimes, misses a lot of things, doesn't show up to things. So both of them have isolated themselves due to their misguided relationship with their professor, who they've gone to hell to get. But we're starting to understand the real motivation why they went to hell as well. They themselves are starting to realize how easily manipulated they were by this man. And I think that's going to play a part into where he is in hell, because it is very obvious that he was a very evil, manipulative, used his students to his advantage. Peter, in a sense, that he used his research and passed it off as his own. And obviously with the female cohort, the sexual connotations of the things that he was implying and using his power for. So it's been very interesting. I'm really liking it. I'm going to continue listening to it tonight. I don't know how far I'm going to get, because like I said, my son has really been on and off with sleeping tonight. I am baking brownies as well for tomorrow because he gets to have sugar, and I also want to make him pancakes in the morning. I don't know if it would be a better idea to make pancakes now and just reheat them, or if I should just make them quick in the morning before I take him to daycare. I will be taking him to daycare just because I feel like he doesn't know that it's his birthday. They are doing like pajama party, Christmas movies tomorrow. They're gonna get him a cake. Like, I just feel like that's fun for him. He is not gonna understand, but he's gonna have fun. And I can like get the house prepared for when he comes home, and his grandparents coming to visit him tomorrow, his aunts and uncles. So I think it could be a lot of fun to have him there at daycare while I do all the boring stuff. So that's where we are currently right now. I'm going to continue listening, like I said, and I will likely update you tomorrow. So welcome back to the end of the vlog, and welcome to my final thoughts on Catabasis. And you know what I just realized when I said that? I've been mispronouncing it, I think, the whole time, but I think it's Catabasis? Catabasis? Catabasis sounds like what I've heard. Here are my final thoughts for Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I genuinely really enjoyed my overall experience with this. The last third proved to be the most like action-packed part of the novel, and I think this is the most fun book that R.F. Kuang has published. I've seen the criticism that Peter and Alice's journey to hell requires some sort of graduate level understanding and knowledge of the utmost depth of classic literature, but I really don't feel like that's the case. So if that is what has been like stopping you from reading this book, I think you can just go ahead. Kuang explains exactly what she means and why she's using specific references. So even if it's from a like philosophical or literary work, I think
you'll be able to understand it if you've been really scared about it. Personally, I really, really love Journey to Hell books. I really like religious connotations in books. So this discussion of hell is always really interesting to me. I didn't talk about it a lot during my updates, but I really, really related to Alice as a main character. How she thinks and how she behaves is very similar to how I think and how I behave. So I was bound to like this overall. However, I don't feel like this novel had as much conversation about the topics within it as her other novels do. And even though this was still a critique of academia and graduate school, I don't feel like it went to the lengths that R.F. Kuang usually goes to. Yes, she briefly discusses Alice's role in her graduate program as a woman of color, but not as much as I would come to expect with R.F. Kuang. So I think that that's what's limiting me from giving it a 5 stars. I just think, like I said, Kuang was just having a lot of fun with her plot in this one. So I'll give her a pass because I don't think that was really the point of the book. One thing I will mention was detrimental to my overall enjoyment of the ending of the novel was definitely how horrible the last chapter of the audiobook is narrated. Randomly, the male narrator enters the villa for all the speaking parts of Peter. And so they're just like the audiobook narrators are like talking to each other in a way. And I was cringing. I hated it. I hate that. If you like that, I think that's weird. I think when it's one narrator that we've come to understand that this is the perspective that we're getting from, stop it. Why are we doing this? Why did that happen? It was so weird. I even recorded my reaction. I was so uncomfortable. I was cringing. I'm in my own home and I hated it. With that, anyways, I gave it a 4.5 stars. Still think that this is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. And I think upon a reread, I could probably give this a 5 stars. I just came to expect something or a level of depth in this that I just didn't quite get, which is like making me apprehensive to give it a 5 stars. But I did have a lot of fun. I did really enjoy this, and I still would highly recommend it, even if you are a bit afraid by the literary references. And with that, we've completed the buzzword readathon. I'm very, very proud of myself. I did it before the end of the year. So let's summarize the books I read and for what prompt they were. So for the buzzword reading challenge for November, the word was never. And for that, I read Never World Wake by Marisha Pessel. Not Marisha Pessel's best. I don't think it really did anything for me. So I gave this a 3 stars. For the cover challenge for November, the theme was food or drink. And for that, I read What Hunger by Catherine Dang. And I gave this 4 stars. Really loved this. I was very surprised. Enjoyed it so much. Then for the reading theme for the reading challenge of December was alliteration. And for that, I read Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. I gave this 4 stars. Very surprised by my enjoyment of pretty much every single story in here. Loved it. Highly recommend. And then the cover challenge for December was like a monochromatic color, like one color. Obviously, this is very, very green. Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, which I gave a 4.5 stars. Honestly, I feel like this was a very successful vlog with books I pretty much enjoyed across the board. So thank you, Books and Lala, for that. If you also completed the buzzword reading challenge this year, let me know how you did. What was your favorite book? What was your favorite theme? Let me know down below in the comments. Of course, if you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. Of course, these are all companies owned by billionaires. I acknowledge it. You acknowledge it. We're all a part of the system. So if you would like to follow me there, you can go ahead and do so. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. It does wonders for my channel, makes me feel really good. And that's it. I never know how to end these things, so I will see you next time. Okay, bye!